Hey, good afternoon, folks. It's still Monday, October 14th. When am I? I don't know when I am anymore. I am still Rob, that developer dad. And this morning we started talking about an administrative subsystem for the product that we've been working on since the beginning of July. um, there's integrations with a payment processor that we need to talk about, integrations with the system itself that we need to talk about, all kinds of things. And I realized that this particular aspect of building out the product, um, the product won't live as an island unto itself. There are supporting things that need to be around it. And one of those is some kind of software that I can use to kind of operate and manage the stuff around it, um, in a way that means I don't have to log into, say, the Azure portal and go into the Entra directory and manually shift people around in the user groups as they change their subscriptions and so on and so forth. I'm going to want sort of a front end or a UI that's going to allow me to perform those activities, so that I don't have to be stumbling around inside the Azure portal to do them, or inside the payment processor's portal to do those things. So we started off by creating a new project and a new repository in GitHub. And let's take a look at that. So here's code. We'll go here. I called it TDMF underscore admin, the DM's familiar underscore admin. I've created a folder for documentation. I will create a source folder. We've got our git ignore. I'll probably need to make some changes and some additions to that so that it ignores .env and so on and so forth. But let's go back into the documentation. We created a markdown file that describes our use cases. I want to be able to manage the groups defined in Microsoft Entra, because that's how we're controlling who can access what inside the DM's familiar application itself. We want to be able to manage membership within those groups, manage the system local data about the products and subscriptions, and so on, so that when the payment processor notifies me that a new person has just started a new subscription, we can stand all of that stuff up, or we can provision their quotas and their subscription and all that good stuff inside the DM's familiar database itself. I think this admin system is an appropriate place to manage the AI prompts that the system will use, and managing user accounts, sending or setting up emails to send to the users, and then pushing those out through the store. The service that I'm looking at that's going to provide the payment processing and all of that stuff also supports mass email management. Not that I want to do a ton of that, because I hate getting spam, but occasionally I'm going to need to send notification out to my user base or my former users and so on when I add new features or have a maintenance window that I need to schedule or what have you. I'll be able to communicate with my customers using that capability. So there's all kinds of stuff gooped up around the overall system, or the product itself, that I'm going to need as the owner of the business to be able to sort of operate that business. So I'm starting to plan out the system that is going to let me do that. So the back half of this morning's session was starting to focus in on what are the volatilities and external systems that I'll be engaging with. And volatilities include identity management, payment management, product capabilities, supporting data for the product itself, and so on. So I'm going to go back into edit mode on this markdown file. Volatilities. Is that spelled right? I hope so. Supporting data, AI prompts, legal value lists, DB stored rule sets, associations between, usage metrics, and operational data. Now I want to go back to the start of this line, pop this in one, and token usage by prompt, user, time slices, etc. DB usage by entity, user, etc. Error logs? Big fat question mark on that. So external systems, we've got the identity store, or I'm going to change that from identity store to identity management. We are going to have an external system that provides the store, payment processor, email distribution, etc. And having looked at a bunch of different services that provide payment processing, store management, subscription management, etc., I think I am going to go with, of the services available for these types of use cases, I'm leaning toward lemon squeezy, that service provides API endpoints for the user subscription management payment processes that I need. They also handle sales tax collection, calculation, collection, and remittance. So I don't have to. They offer PCI compliance out of the box, and none of my customers' sensitive payment info would be stored in databases that I own. That's huge, because PCI compliance is a big effing deal. Towards lemon squeezy. Lemon squeezy does not offer a .NET SDK for those endpoints. Consider making the API wrapper for this system available as an independent code base. And those are really just the external systems. Oh, you know what? We're going to need some integration with the product itself. DMs familiar. Need to be able to update subscription and quota data for each user. Want to be able to manage the information that's displayed on the products pages within the app's website. Want to be able to manage the AI prompts from used by the product from this subsystem as well. So, supporting data for the product itself. So, these are concrete discovered volatilities right here. These things can be further generalized into customer management, customer communication, product maintenance, integrations. Do I? Let's see here. Acquisition. I hate that word. I feel like a Ferengi. Acquisition, payment capture, I'm going to say acquisition, no. Customer management, identity, profile, and payment. Yeah, that's really about it. Account status. Yeah. Account status and payment are different from each other. Customer communication. Whoop. Bump that in. Email notifications. To categories of users. Customers. Product maintenance. Product and subscription data. Data that drives the application. Pop out here. First party services. Third party services. Now let's spell those right. The application itself. And lemon squeezy, MS Entra, etc. Excuse me. All right. So let's commit these changes. Adds additional detail to the lists of volatilities, spelling rob, volatilities, and selected third-party systems I'll need to integrate with. Commit the changes. All right, so we are going to use this list to kind of slice up the pie into different chunks. So let's go back to Docs. Open this in a new window because I'm going to want that over on my other screen for reference. Excuse me. And let's load up Draw.io. Save these changes. I'm not ready for flowcharts yet. File, new. Come on, Draw. You can do it. Here we go. Create new diagram. And we're going to go with simple Kanban, cross-functional flowchart, sequence, placeholders, mind maps, blank. Very first thing we need is a banner across the top. Text, let's make that bigger. We'll go to 16. And yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Static design. Admin system. And I actually want to grab this and can we perimeter 1 point? You gonna let me? Line. Okay. And I just want it on the bottom. Okay, whatever. I'm splitting hairs here, and that's getting in the way of the work. So, first things first. I always use green for clients. Client application. And I'm not going to make any decisions about the technology I use for this yet, because it's not time for that. However, we have another client for this, and it's going to be endpoints for, I'm just going to call this the Webhooks client. Now, what's a webhook? A webhook is a special kind of URL that you can stand up in your own system so that when some event happens in an external system that your system cares about, just for sketching purposes here, or just while I talk through this idea. So I'm just going to use a big honkin' square or a big honkin' rectangle. My system. Some other system, like a payment processor. So sometimes my end user is going to go through some interaction with my payment processor. Now, I want that activity to, as in as close to real time as possible, take effect inside my system. So what Lemon Squeezy and Stripe, and I think PayPal does it as well, I haven't looked too deeply into them. A lot of these payment processors that support subscription type services or even one-time software purchases and so on do is they allow the owner of a system, and I'm going to change the color on this a little bit. I'm going to make this an external system. So what they'll do is in here, they will accept a URL call for that this system would call when certain events happen in here that we need to reflect in our local systems. So let's go ahead and add another shape. And I'm going to change the color on this guy to dark green. Webhook. And let's say we've got a few of them. And let's say we've got a few of these. Let's just do 2 for now. There's more than 2. We're starting to get a little crazy. And instead of just my system, I'm going to move that text. Move it over to the right and up to the top, just to keep it tidy. Now, because we can't register our entire API with Lemon Squeezy or Stripe or Active Directory or what have you, what we need to do is we need to take these webhooks, and I'm actually going to scale that font size down a little bit, and then I'm going to shrink all of these so that they're a little smaller, or a lot smaller as the case may be. So we're going to take these webhooks and we're just going to like stick them out the edge of our system here. Now, rather than have them separated like that, ooh, didn't want to do that. Come on. There we go. I'm going to scooch you up, select you, and we'll just bring you guys up to the top too. Now, I need another shape. So let's grab our handy dandy rectangle. And we're going to make you a pale green or a lighter green. Come in here and I'm going to go API. And we're going to make the text fill black. And administrative API. And we'll pull you down here like so. And I'm going to grab this green guy, copy him, paste him, pull him over here. We'll do this. Administrative UI. And we can bump that text size up a bit more. Oop, doesn't need to go to 20. We can keep with 18. There's that. So, our external systems. Hey, what's up, C Films? So our external systems can call these purpose-built webhooks. And I'm just going to add a couple more arrows just to keep a complete design. And one more. Here we go. All right. So we've got external systems calling these webhooks, which in turn do some verification and data cleansing and so on. And I need to change the color on my shape. There we go. And I'm going to connect you to the corner here if it'll let me. Nope. Okay, you'll connect to the side. 2, 3. So let's grab this fella and go boop and boop. I'll grab this guy. You get the picture. So the webhooks then forward the request once the initial sanitation has happened, or sanitization, I should say, to the API. And I'm going to add one more arrow. Here we go. There's that. And then the API will let's change the shape fill on this to, we'll go with a light orange. And the text fill is going to be black. We're going to use a smaller font size. Manager. And then one more shape, kind. Well, no. Oops, I want this. Resource. Access. And we're going to take that text down to a 14 and make the text black. Boop. We'll have one more of these. Excuse me. Final shape to add. I need a can. And we'll fill the can with the light blue. Black text. And we'll do a 14 on this guy as well. System resource. And so the webhooks will come in, go to the administrative API, who then, based on what comes in, calls to the manager, calls to the appropriate managers, who then take care of executing that particular workload. And the resource access down here, he could be communicating with this external system, could be communicating with another internal resource, what have you. Doesn't matter. The basic flow is the same. So this API is the gateway, or sort of the workload provider, because I'm using that concept already in the application itself. This guy stitches together the finer grained capabilities provided by the managers into different workloads that are offered by the application. So the admin API provides admin workflows. The managers provide activities that are used by those workflows. And of course, the components that the manager communicates with provide the tasks that are composed into the activities exposed by the managers. And I think that bears calling out. So we're going to scooch these guys over here a little bit. And I'm going to drag a text box out here. A process can be thought of as a collection of activities that are performed in sequence to accomplish a desired effect. A process is composed of activities that may or may not be shared amongst multiple processes. An activity is composed of steps that are performed sequentially a step is a single unit of work. I don't want to use the term unit of work. Is a single piece of execution is a single transaction that performs some specific piece of work. Process is composed of activities. These processes are typically composed within an API or workflow provider. Lowercase f, uppercase P component. And I need to make all of that text smaller. We'll take it down to a 14. Activities are controlled and exposed by manager components. Whoop. We'll bold that. Steps are provided and executed by engine and resource access components. Lowercase c, bold that. Oops. Bold that. Pardon me. Is is a single step is a single. I don't want to use the word transaction here because that's got other implications. Is a single task. Are provided and executed by engine and resource access components as callable methods. In distributed systems, the API workload provider is usually the only publicly exposed component if there is no traditional UI. Simple systems may skip the workload provider in favor of the UI communicating directly with the managers. And I have to shrink this down a little bit more. There we go. Simple systems may skip the workload provider, though in practice, skipping this is frequently a recipe for regret. Skipping that layer is frequently a recipe for regret. So what does this mean for our system? We have our Webhooks client, and that whole discussion about organization of code and systems and everything like that came from me trying to explain webhooks. All a webhook is an exposure of a particular use case within your system to a public entity so that they can notify your system when some event happens in their system. It means Lemon Squeezy doesn't have to write a bunch of custom code to push events that happen inside their system when somebody creates a new subscription or changes what kind of subscription they have or puts it on pause or cancels it or what have you. So I'm going to need to figure out how to host and expose webhooks for this system here. But I expect the code for those webhooks to be very, very small. I may even just host them as HTTP triggered Azure functions. I'm not sure how I'm going to work it yet. We'll see. I've got research and learning to do there. So for now, we're going to focus from the administrative API down. I'm going to push pause on this. I'll be right back. And then when I come back, we're going to dive in and start identifying what some of these managers, engines, and resources are going to be. Just be a couple of minutes. right, I am back. Back to main screen turn on. Here we go. So, like I just said, we're going to focus on, we know we're going to have an admin API, but we need to identify what our managers are and our resources, if we need any engines, what have you. So, let's see. Webhooks client. We are going to need let's go ahead and we'll add, and I'm going to make this intentionally thin. In fact, I'm going to make the Webhooks client thinner as well. I'm just going to space that out just a little better. And we'll go with that. But I want to go with a lighter green. So let's do that green. Apply it. Pop over to the text. Font color is going to be black. Apply. Workload provider API. Administrative workload provider or the API. Okay, so in our system, let's go back to GitHub. External systems and volatilities. The volatilities we are concerned with are customers, communication, products, or catalog. Oh, hey, I'm over here, robot. Hey, buddy. I'm right here. My robot got confused. Here we are. So, customers, customers have a lot of things that we can do with them. And we need to have these activities available to not only the administrative interface, but the actual application interface as well. Notification, email notification to categories of customers. We need to edit this. So we're going to pop down here. And I'm going to take customer communication out. Notification to and from external systems that we rely on. Could be emails, webhook calls, varies by direction, into or out of, into or out of system, varies by audience, customer, or external system, This is really starting to get too wonky and too techy. I'm overthinking this. Communication is no longer a category. Notifications. No. Email messaging. Let's be that specific. Product maintenance, data that drives the application. Okay, integrations. All right. So, we have need for a let's go to style. These are managers, so I like to code these yellow, or like a lighter, yeah, yellow works. And we'll pick black for the font. Customer. Catalog. Product management. Now, instead of catalog, that sort of encompasses sales. No. Yeah. Yeah, sales works. So let's pull this over here. And we'll recenter this underneath the workload provider. And excuse me. Customer needs access to resources. And that is a different color. I use light blue for resource. Let's pop over. Here we go. And font color on this guy is going to be black, so that we've got a nice high contrast. And we've got identity. And profile. We also have account Yeah, I don't like that terminology. Subscription and quotas. We have catalog, which is much more complex than I'm making it out to be here. And let's put that on a new line. Catalog. Payment processing. That's going to be on a new line. And I'm going to color code this a different blue than that light, because payment processing is going to happen externally. I'm going to take that to gray. Black text. Apply. Identity and profile. Same story. You go to gray with black text. And because I know I'm already using this, let's go grab that gray with black text, apply, Entra ID, grab this, LS payments, so our product management is going to have access to usage, prompts, and I'm running out of space. So I'm going to need to go multi-line with some of these guys. And eventually, rule sets. I can pop these guys so that they're smaller, take up a little less horizontal space. Pop you in by one here, one here, one here, one here, here, and here. Now, our customer will communicate, or our customer manager will communicate directly with subscriptions and quotas. And I have that going in the wrong direction. Boop. It'll communicate directly with, where's my arrowhead? I hope I grabbed the right end of that. Communicate directly with identity and profile, access, and Jinky Scoob. Let's grab this, pull it down here, come over here, do that. And the style on this guy, text, no, style. Excuse me. I want to use a dotted line for that. because it's making a network call, and so will be asynchronous by nature. But HTTP, good enough. And sales will depend on this, depend on the payment processor. And the catalog. And you, my little friend, are going to shrink a little bit. There we go. And you're starting to get the picture of where I'm going with this. So identity and profile access is going to wrap the details of communicating with Microsoft Entra. And then the customer manager is going to use those details. Payment processing, sales, it's going to call out to payment processing, which is then going to forward the request off to LS Payments and do some stuff that way. I want to boop that over so that the line is more closer to vertical. Do the same thing over here with the Entra connection. Here we go. And that's sort of the general idea. Now, initially, this is all going to be enclosed. Whoops, not what I wanted to do. I'm going to send this to the back. And I'm going to go with a black with a white outline. This guy is going to be a modular monolith, just like our main application. Just like that. Then our webhooks are going to come in and talk to the admin workload provider. The client application, in whatever form it takes, is going to talk to the workload provider. I might actually decide to play around with Maui for this and actually create a native binary that I can run on my Mac or on a Windows machine or on whatever machine I find myself using. I feel like I don't want to target a web app for that. So I'm just going to right now put that there. And here. Azure Funk. Just as a guess. And this whole shebang, it's going to be probably an app service. I want to push that all the way over here and glue it to the top. There's the top. Where's my send to top thingy? Where are you at? Not sure yet. Okay, so this might be deployed as an app service. And then, of course, if I determine that product management needs to be split off into its own thing, or any of these pieces need to be split off into their own services, I can do so, take the code, wrap it in a API, and rehost it as a discrete service if I need to. I'm not going to worry about that yet, but I'm going to make certain that the interaction from component to component within the system is designed in such a way that it facilitates changing between an internal project or binary reference within the .NET solution to a remote HTTP or gRPC or AMQP or whatever. If I have to switch the protocol or switch the communication method between these different components, I can do so easily just by wrapping the actual code in whatever kind of host needs to be stood up. The calling code shouldn't have to change, besides obviously changing which excuse me, which protocol or the style of proxy is being used. So the DM's familiar admin architecture, and I don't want to put that in there. I'm just going to put it in my documents. You know what? I'm going to put it in the code folder, just like right at the root. Save. And I think we've done enough for this afternoon. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to let this marinate in my head between now and tomorrow morning when I get back at this, and we'll make adjustments as necessary as they come to me. But I'll just make notes on things that pop into my head between now and tomorrow morning, and I'll make all of those adjustments live on stream and talk through my sort of internal mental process as I do this kind of design type stuff. So I thank you for joining me, and until next time, take care of yourselves. Happy coding, everybody.